You open your laptop, check one thing, get distracted, and suddenly it's 2 hours later, and you've done everything except what you needed to do. You tell yourself you're just tired. You blame your phone. You say, I'll focus tomorrow. But tomorrow feels exactly the same. Your brain is foggy. Your motivation is flat. And even when you want to focus, you can't hold on to it. It's frustrating. And quietly, a little scary. Because deep down, it starts to feel like maybe your mind's just getting worse. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain isn't broken. It's just adapting to chaos. Every day, you're hit with more information, more urgency, more digital noise, and less time to think, pause, or just be still. Focus isn't disappearing. It's being reprogrammed by the habits, inputs, and emotional loops you repeat without noticing. Your attention isn't lazy. It's exhausted. And unless you learn how to reclaim it, you'll keep waking up in a life that feels blurred, busy, and disconnected from anything real. Let's get under the noise and find out what's pulling your mind apart. You start the day with the best intentions, maybe even a to-do list. You say, I just need one focused hour. But before you even get to task one, your mind's already splintered. You check one notification, then another. You remember something random. You open a tab, and suddenly you're juggling 12 half-finished thoughts and no momentum. You're not doing nothing, but you're not really doing anything either. So you call it procrastination. You say you're just bad at focus. But that's not the whole story. You've trained your mind, unintentionally, to seek stimulation over clarity, to chase micro rewards instead of deep engagement, to respond instead of direct. And now, your attention doesn't sit anywhere. It just ricochets. Because in a world built for distraction, stillness feels like withdrawal. Silence feels like something's wrong. And focus feels like friction, because it's no longer your default. You think you just need more willpower. But it's not a motivation problem. It's a feedback loop. Every time you abandon a task to check something, your brain gets rewarded. Dopamine hits, tiny relief, sense of control. But those hits add up. And eventually, your brain forgets how to hold space for things that don't pay off immediately. That's the loop. Crave clarity. Seek stimulation instead. Feel guilty for not focusing. Numb that guilt with more distraction. And the longer that loop runs, the more it rewires what your mind thinks normal feels like. Here's the mini truth. You're not distracted because you're weak. You're distracted because distraction has become your baseline state. And when that baseline goes unchecked, even simple focus starts to feel like pressure instead of presence. Let's go deeper, because the real reason you can't focus isn't just your phone or your habits. It's who you've been trained to be and how that identity keeps you scattered. You weren't raised to be still. You were raised to be available, responsive, productive, low maintenance, someone who answers quickly, moves quickly, someone who doesn't sit with a thought. They fix it. And now, every time your brain tries to slow down, there's this internal tension, this twitch, this urge to check something, do something, respond to something, just to feel regulated again. Because presence feels unsafe. Stillness feels lazy. Focus feels selfish, like you're ignoring something more urgent, more important, more acceptable. So you fill the quiet. Scroll when you're overwhelmed. Open tabs when you're anxious. Multitask to prove you're not falling behind. And slowly, your attention becomes less about what you choose and more about what keeps you emotionally safe. This is the mask. High functioning, always on, reliable, but under it, you're overstimulated, underengaged, and constantly fragmented. Because distraction isn't just a habit, it's a form of protection. If you never stop, you never have to feel what's underneath the stillness, the disappointment, the fear, the inner question, what if I slow down and there's nothing real left? So you keep moving, not because it works, but because it's familiar. And your mind follows that pattern until focus feels like a risk instead of a relief. You're not mentally weak. You're emotionally guarded. You've learned to guard yourself with movement, inputs, and productivity because you've never felt safe just being with yourself. That's not a flaw, it's a signal. And once you stop blaming your phone and start looking at what your distractions are protecting you from, you can finally start reclaiming the version of you that doesn't need to escape your own presence. Let's flip it. You keep saying your attention is broken, that you just can't focus anymore. But what if your focus isn't gone? It's just buried beneath everything you think you have to be? You don't need more motivation. You need less mental noise. Because focus isn't a skill you lost. It's a state your nervous system doesn't trust anymore. When your brain is constantly pulled between who you really are and the version of you the world rewards. It never gets still long enough to center itself. You're not mentally failing. You're just not mentally free. You've been performing calm while panicking underneath. You've been chasing structure without grounding. You've been managing 20 things at once, not because you're efficient, but because you're afraid that stopping might unravel something. Here's the reframe. You don't lack focus. You lack alignment. Your mind isn't designed to operate in 1,000 directions, pretending everything's fine. It's designed to tune in when your actions match your priorities, when your values aren't buried under obligations, when your energy isn't spent managing how you're perceived 24/7. You think your attention span is broken, but really, it's refusing to invest in a life that doesn't feel like it's yours. That's not dysfunction. That's intelligence. Your brain is trying to get your attention by refusing to give it away so easily anymore. And once you recognize that your inability to focus is actually a signal, not a weakness, everything shifts. You don't need to fight your mind back into shape. You need to listen to what it's trying to protect you from. Here's what happens when you don't reclaim your focus, when you keep living scattered, overstimulated, and silently disconnected. You start feeling busy all the time, but never actually productive. You go to bed mentally wiped, but emotionally restless, because you weren't present for most of the day. You were just reacting, filling, buffering, numbing. And slowly, life starts to blur. You can't remember what you did last week. You lose track of conversations mid-sentence. You forget why you walked into the room, not because your brain is broken, but because it's been split in 20 directions for far too long. The long-term cost. You start confusing movement with momentum. You mistake constant activity for actual clarity. And over time, you lose the ability to tell the difference between urgency and importance. Your mind starts running on autopilot, chasing what's loud, not what's true. And here's the quiet part that sneaks up. You don't just lose time. You lose trust in yourself. When you can't focus, you stop finishing things. When you stop finishing, you stop believing yourself. And when that cycle repeats long enough, you start seeing yourself as unreliable. Not because you are, but because your attention has been hijacked for so long, you've forgotten what intentional living even feels like. That's the consequence. Not just distraction, disconnection, not just lower productivity, but a quieter form of self-abandonment. The kind that doesn't scream. It just builds. Until the days all feel the same, your goals stop feeling real, and your inner voice gets drowned out by whatever's loudest on the timeline. And the worst part, you won't even realize it's happening, because being unfocused has become your new normal. But here's the shift. Focus isn't something you force. It's something you return to. It's what naturally happens when your nervous system feels safe. Your values are clear, and your mind isn't stuck playing defense against 1,000 unspoken pressures. You're not broken. You're just overstimulated and emotionally scattered in a world designed to keep you that way. But there's a version of you that knows how to focus, not in a grind harder way, but in a calm, present, I'm right here way. That version of you is still in there, buried under survival habits, muffled by noise, trained to chase what's urgent instead of what's honest. And you don't need a dopamine detox or a productivity hack to find it. You need to rebuild trust. Start with one task you finish on purpose, 1 hour without checking anything, 1 walk without headphones, 1 moment where you pause before reacting, 1 day where you choose what to give your attention to. Not just who's asking for it, because attention is currency. And every time you spend it on autopilot, you tell your mind that your life doesn't belong to you. But the second you become intentional with it, your clarity starts coming back. Your presence sharpens. Your sense of direction returns. Not because you hustled harder, but because you came back to yourself. And no, it won't always feel natural at first. Stillness might feel uncomfortable. Clarity might feel confronting. But that's not a problem. That's you waking up. You don't need to fix your mind. You need to stop abandoning it. Rebuild your attention from the inside out. Not with more effort, but with less escape. Because the ability to focus isn't just a skill, it's a form of self-respect. This wasn't advice. It was a reminder. And you felt it.